Sometimes when you sell a piece, it comes back to you, and not necessarily in the way you think. I sold this large table, it's about a 10-footer, to a customer in the Bay Area when I was doing home shows. I did 22 shows in 3 years. Man, that's a lot of gypsy moving. That was 8 years ago. And back in those days, I assumed that the wood was free of pests, you know. And it was. This one didn't have noticeable pest and contamination marks, so I didn't bother to fumigate it, or I fumigated it and it slipped through the cracks somehow. Maybe it didn't get in the batch that was fumigated. And I used it anyway. I assumed it was good. And it was good for a few years, and then gradually they started showing their nasty little frass. And so the customer called me a couple of weeks ago and asked what I could do for him. And I told him, well, I'll pay the shipping back, and maybe you can pay the shipping to you again. And I will make it look like new again, no charge. And it's like a $9,000 or $10,000 table, so the small shipping price is well worth it for him. Started looking at it closer, and I realized I probably shouldn't have left those bark pockets in there. You know, you learn as you go, and nowadays I would pull all those bark pockets out and put resin in there, but I just resined right over the bark, and it had a little separation issues in there, but nothing really bad. I was kind of pleasantly surprised to find that it's held up pretty good. There's a reason I don't use much oak, and it generally is not a good construction wood, the wood that I have here in my area. It's mostly one of 4 species, and this one is called live oak. It twists and cups real bad when it's drying, and I used it because it's what I had. And anytime you build a brown table, say a black walnut table, there's always someone that comes along and says, well, you got anything else, any other colors? And so you always have to have one that's not black. And this was it, and they liked it, and they still love it. They treasure this piece, and they've gotten a lot of compliments from it, they said. So I've restored it back to its original glory, and today I'm going to make sure I set it up before I send it to them, make sure that it all fits back together appropriately. The process is you identify where the infestation is, and you make sure that you kind of tap along it after you've heat treated it and figure out where the thin spots are, and just resin those in. I use resin and coffee as a filler, espresso grind coffee. And it works really good for this species as a highlight. It kind of looks like the black bark when you put it in there. And then you just sand it. You start with a 50 and you move to the 80 and 220, and then you hand sand again with 180 and then 220 again, and just fill all the cracks. It takes 2 or 3 fills because as you're going, you might fill this one time, and by the time you sand the top layer of filler off, you see some little cavities that didn't get filled, and that's what I call putting the lipstick on. You just have to keep applying it until you get it right. Yeah, these logs find me. When you have a sawmill and you advertise you want some logs to cut, and you specify what species you want, oftentimes guys will call you with pieces that are wind downed. You know, the wind will come along in a storm and it will knock a tree down, and that's the kind of stuff I get. And I oftentimes tell them, you know, I don't have any way to get it here, so if it's accessible, I'll send a tow truck, and they'll just winch it up onto the back of one of those tilt trucks, and they bring it over here and they tilt it again and just let it roll right off. And then I have a bobcat here that I can maneuver it around for my sawmill. I cut everything at 3.5 inches thick because this species and all the other species are air drying, and they get their way. You know, they move and cup and warp and twist, And the parts that twist too much, I use as short parts, you know, chair rails or spindles or legs or something. And the ones that stay nice and straight, they end up as tabletops. Oak is everything from this spalted edge where it's a little bit blue to the 3 or 4 different colors of yellow and brown in there. And this yellowish area is probably where it was starting to break down. You know, when you get this edge, that sapwood, that's the most permeable layer of the log because that's the newest wood. And that can tend to make the rest of the log start to decay as well. This one has a little spalting along here, and that is kind of the designation line of where it was starting to decay. And although it's still really hard and really good, it's just good to have colors in your piece. If you can age a log, you can get more spalting, and if you cut a log that's fresh, you get less spalting. Spalting is kind of a thing that happens with the pines in the area, and they kind of get blue, and it's a good color variation for this species. If you like the videos, please subscribe. It helps me do more videos and bring more content to more users. Thank you.